Okay, this is how to build a T-bowl. You should have a slab of clay that's been provided by your instructor, and you should have transferred your textures, your markings from your planning document to your slab, and from here we're going to learn how to make the slab into an actual T-bowl. So for the first step, we're going to take our slab and we're going to stand it up and we're going to turn it into a cylinder. It doesn't matter that it's a perfect cylinder or not, but you should think about which end you want to overlap, because some of this will get cut off. So hopefully you guys can see that. You're going to have that overlap like this. Now we're going to take a knife, a regular old just plastic knife, and we're going to cut at an angle through both of the slabs, through the overlapping pieces. I'm going to support this while I cut. Cut straight down. This piece we set to the side. This piece we set to the side. And now we have a nice beveled edge. Both of those two edges come together well. Now we can score them. We'll use our fork, our plastic fork. I like to score vertically for this seam. It's a vertical seam. I score both sides. I apply water to both sides. And then I score again. This is creating slip. And then I'm going to take my hands, I'm going to dry my hands a little bit. I don't want damp hands for this. I don't want to have, I don't want to create slurry on the surface or slip on the surface. So now I'm going to take these two and I'm going to put those together. So I match them together like this. I do this down on the table and I support them on either side with my fingers and mash that together really well. Not worrying about the details on the outside of the pot. Now I'm going to turn this over carefully so I can do the other side. And then I'm going to put my hand on the back side back here for support, and I'm going to compress the clay here. Again, not worrying about the details on the outside. Think wabi-sabi. I'm going to take a little bit of this clay here that was a cutoff, and I'm going to roll that into a coil. I can do that between my hands or on the table. If you do it on the table, remember you have cleanup to do. Now on this inside seam here, I'm going to place the coil. I might score that surface just lightly with my fork. Take my coil, a little bit of water, not too much. Place the coil on the seam. Back the outside up with your hand. So I have to place my hand here and I'm going to mash that clay in really well and compress, smoothing that clay out. But I cannot do this unless my hand is backing it up. If I do it without that, I will push the walls out and I will open the seam. So I work back and forth vertically if I need to, until I smooth that out. So that is step one of building the T-bowl. Okay, so now we have step two of the T-bowl. We have attached the walls, we've created a cylinder, so now it is time for us to establish the bottom of this. So we have to decide which part we want to be the bottom. We look at the T-bowl and think which way do we want to be up, which way do we want to be down. I think I like the orientation like this, so I think that this will be the top. So if this is the top, I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn it upside down like this. Okay, now I'm just going to make it kind of clean. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it to be round. And now I am going to take my knife, my regular old plastic knife, and I'm going to mark out the north, south, west, and east. But before I do that, I need to make sure that I know where my seam is. So on this one, I did a pretty good job. My seam is right here. So I don't want to locate my seam on north, south, west, or east. I can turn that any direction I want to. Since it's facing north, this is my north, it would be your south. So let's call it that. Since the seam is facing south for you, I'm going to turn it, this is west, right? So I'm going to turn it southwest, like that. Now, I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to mark my south, and I can make a pretty strong mark here. South, north, west, east. 4 divisions. If you look at that, you can see I have 4 pretty even divisions. Now I'm going to take this piece of paper that's been supplied to you. I think it's about 18 inches by about 1 5/8 inches wide. And we're going to use this. This is a tool. We're going to use this for a couple of things. The first thing we're going to use it for is we're going to use it from the top edge like this. Right here at this south mark that we made, we're going to put a little horizontal mark below it. So it looks like this. Here's my horizontal mark, and here's my mark for south. And I'm going to go ahead and just draw a line down from there to the horizontal mark, or scribe a line, I should say. We're not drawing. And we're going to turn this, and we're going to do the same thing all the way around. Now this is interesting because I'm cutting into my point of focal emphasis, so I may have to reestablish this later on. Pull that down. So now I have a line on all 4 of those from that south, west, north, east, from here down to that mark, all the way around the edge. Okay, now this piece of paper I said was a tool, so we can also take that and fold it in half like this, and that gets our center point here. And now we're going to set the center point on each one of those marks, those north, south, west, and east marks, and we're going to use the edges to make a mark on either side. And where we folded it, that goes right on your north, south, west, or east. Okay, so now I have my center mark, and then I have a mark on either side. Now the next move for us is that we're going to cut from those outside marks in a diagonal fashion to the bottom here, just like this, and we're going to cut a wedge out. So I'll go ahead and do that. And now you remove that wedge of clay, you can set that to the side, and we're going to go ahead and do that all the way around. I'm going to do it facing me because it's a little bit easier for me to see. Okay, so now we have 4 triangular sections that have been taken out equally around the pot. So now we'll take our fork and we're going to score like we did before when we put the cylinder together. Don't be afraid to score very deeply and aggressively. A little water on there. If you score very lightly, the bond is not very strong. Imagine that your scoring is like putting your hands together. And if you put your hands together very easily like this and your fingers intertwine but barely, they can slide away. But if we push them in very deeply like that, they're locked, they're not going anywhere. Okay, so now we're going to, just like we did on the larger form, we're going to hold it with our hands on either side, our fingers on either side, and we're going to mash that together really, really well. And then support on the inside and compress. again, not worrying too much about this extra clay, we can just take that and set that off to the side. It's a little bit messy. Compress. I'm working on a piece of canvas here, but you will probably be working on some newspaper on your table. Hold these, really, really push them together. Back it up, compress. And the final corner. And now we have the beginnings of our T-bowl. It's starting to look a little bit more like something that is a vessel rather than just a cylinder. And now I will support and compress these seams. And if I feel like I need to add coil to these seams, that's a wise choice. So we've got plenty of waste clay, so it's a good idea to roll up a little coil, mash a little bit of coil into those seams and compress them. Always making sure that when you do, back the pot up with your hand is curved, it'll hold the form, you can put the coil in and compress the coil. So that's your next step for constructing your T-bowl.